Hi, everyone. It's been a while since I have done a live interviewing someone for eating the low carb way and coupling that with Neolife. So most of you know me, Sherry from Sherry's Low Carb Kitchen and Reef Natural. And tonight I have a very special guest that offered, actually requested to be interviewed because changing the okay, I had to make sure that this was working. Changing her way of eating helped so much with her mental status, as well as other physical issues. Forewarning you, this might be a very sensitive interview. So the special guest is my oldest daughter, Ashley. And a little history about her. She has always been a mini-me, high-strung, perfectionist, puts a lot of stress on herself, and but always a very happy child. As she got into puberty and into young adulthood, we noticed changes going on with her, and she had been taking Neolife with us since she was about 10 or 12 when we started with Neolife back in 2009. And it helped. And we noticed, we could tell a difference when she would not take it versus when she would. But as she got older and then entered college, we noticed our daughter slipping away from us. And we could see the depression going on and the level of stress and anxiety, and there was nothing that we could do to help. I had her on a pretty strict regimen, and I put all of her supplements into like the Monday through Friday daily container, and send that to school with her, and she would take that. But as we went along, nothing helped. So Ashley's going to come on camera and just talk a little bit about college life and the stress and the type of food that they feed them, and how we eventually found out that that was actually what was making her brain hate her. So she's going to talk about her struggles and also the fight that we had to go through to get her off of the meal plan once we figured out what was going on. And now we have our daughter back thanks to these changes, and she's much like she was before she went to school. So why don't you have a seat? So this is my daughter, Ashley.
Hello.
She is 21 and a junior at Silver Lake. Well, what is the name changed to now?
Holy Family College.
Holy Family College in Manitowoc. She is on track for summa cum laude, and we are super proud of her. Why don't you just tell a little bit about like that your senior year before you, and then because that's when you started really having the depression issues, and then as you moved into school and things that were happening, and just be honest with what you were feeling and things that happened.
Yeah, okay. So as I entered my senior year of high school, wasn't really great academically, and part of it was due to not just my lack of motivation, but I was not really doing anything besides that. I would often kind of sit up in my room, and I kind of hide away from my family and play games. So that affected my brain waves because I was not doing any exercise. I was also barely eating, and when I was eating a lot of junk food, candy, lots of food that was full of carbs, and all of that just kind of fed into my brain, and my personality kind of did a major change. And as I went off to college, it didn't get much better because the food at college is also full of carbs.
What kind of meals were you eating?
I was eating a lot of pasta. There was lots of pasta. There was a lot of pizza. I know for my first 2 years, at least, being a music major, when you get the chance to eat, you would just shovel all the food down that you can get because we are always running and on the go. So, and I know for many other music majors, there's not much of a um, time that you can actually sit down and enjoy a meal. So we're often running and just shoveling whatever we could down our throats. There were sometimes to go sandwiches, but those were just for during the day. And if we came during like the last 15 minutes that the scheduled time for the meal was still open, there wasn't much left, and they were already packing things. And putting them away, so there wasn't much that we could get to eat. But for the meals that I could, I was getting a lot of pizza, pasta. There really just wasn't anything that good that was like low carbs. There were like sweet potatoes. Of course, they had their desserts. They had salads, but of course, you can't live off salads every day. Their soups had carbs in them because it was full of rice and beans most of the time.
And how did that make you
Yeah,
feel? Like, how was your
it
physical
made
health?
me feel very bloated. I was very tired, no energy, and that fed into my personality, making me snappy. And I kind of had a more dark personality. I wasn't very chipper, and I was not a very happy person to be around. Um, so yeah, the carbs making you feel bloated, making you feel heavy. Well, it definitely made my personality, and the way that my mind went feel heavy as well, and that's what gave me that dark personality.
And as you were isolating yourself, you were more drawn into like the online world.
Yeah.
And
Yes. So I went through a phase where I, along with that food that made me not want to be around people, and I ended up finding a bunch of games online which weren't necessarily the best for me, and that also the food just really went and triggered my brain to think different things and think that a lot of the online stuff that I was doing was okay. And it started.
that became a reality for you.
Yeah.
That was your reality.
It was a reality, and it started changing my views, especially my views on my faith and Catholicism. And it really fed into my depression because I did not have a lot of contact, physical contact and interaction from the outside world, from real life. It was all just online. And so that just is what really started to trigger my depression, trigger that a lot of people out here do not really care for me. And that's kind of like how it all started. And
how did you feel about yourself?
Horrible. I felt very useless, and I felt that no one was around and wanted to be here for me. And oftentimes I would find that I would switch to cut. I began to find objects to cut into my skin because of the depression that would feed into my brain. And I just believed that I wasn't meant to be here anymore, and that there was going to be no one who would have cared if I was gone, just because of everything that I was going through. And this lasted probably for about a good year and a half. I wrote for one of my finals in my class, I wrote a 10-page memoir just talking about my depression and how it had grown stronger over the years, and especially with like the food and just how it changed my mindset, making me think that there was no one around here, because I would always end up arguing with my parents and just wanting to pick fights because I thought I knew everything and I wasn't willing to try and listen to other opinions around me. And so, yeah, that's kind of.
And then there was a period of time where you lost a lot of weight because you weren't even eating
I wasn't
because of your
eating.
depression and stress.
Yeah, and they're just, I was constantly running and I was so focused on my school that it wasn't an anorexia stage, but it definitely was just, I felt that I felt I didn't feel hungry. I felt I had no need to eat, and I just kept pushing, just really just barely clinging on to be able to get through my school year and get through life, just to try. And of course then that meant that the small times that I did eat, maybe like that half a meal during the day, it was full carbs. It was like a sandwich a day, and that's what I got to eat.
When her dad and I found out what was going on, because like she said, she isolated herself from us and would try to act like everything was okay, but we knew everything wasn't. I did some research and I put together the quite a few Neolife supplements. And how did you feel when you would remember to take those? They would help, or
It definitely, I definitely felt better. I mean, it wasn't like I am now, but I did feel a little less tired, and I did, my mind felt a little bit clearer, and so I was able to get through my school day a little bit easier. So that was a start in helping my depression and helping with that.
And then so this that and just to clarify, during her senior year of high school, we did not feed her all that junk.
No,
when you're 18 and you have a car of your own, you
Yes.
can go and buy your own things.
Yes.
So during that time, we didn't eat exactly clean, and we did have some processed foods and like breads and things like that, but we didn't have candy and sugary stuff in the house. But that doesn't stop a 18-year-old from going and getting those. So that was not something that we provided as a staple, but that was something that she was craving, and it caused a cycle. So fast forwarding to the end of her sophomore year, this past May, our family started eating low carb, high healthy fat, ketogenic in towards the end of November of last year, and we started the whole family in January. But Ashley was at school, so when she came home in May, she was still struggling, but it was a little bit better, and we did a food elimination. So she came to me and she said, "Mom, I want to start eating the way that you're eating because I'm bloated." I mean, and her stomach would get distended and everything. So when we did the food elimination and we took all of those processed carbs out, how did you feel?
I felt a lot better. I mean, not even just because like before when I was kind of like in that depression stage, I was not a big fan of myself. Like even just my looks, I was very insecure about my looks. And like even like now I don't, flaunt off my looks, but I can appreciate myself as a person, and I like who I am, and that was one of the first things that I had started to notice when I was getting off all of the carbs and going on to going into this different lifestyle, and I really just started loving me for who I am, and that was the first step to be able to open myself back up to reality and open myself back up to my family, and just people around me to just reach out for help and just take it step by step. And yeah.
At a point last year, during her sophomore year, things were really bad. I never knew if I was gonna get a call that something had happened to her. Her dad and I were extremely worried about suicide or self-harm. We did get her into a private counselor, and she was able to have a couple sessions with him. It was hard because the music major's schedule is from morning to night. But we did everything that we were supposed to do. We even put an app on her phone so that I would get alerts for certain words. And so I loaded that app up with all different kinds of words so that if I got an alert, I could go and look and see what it was in reference to. Was it I'm cutting my hot dog up or I'm cutting myself? And so it was a really difficult time. And when we noticed right away when she started the diet change, she was just happier. She stopped isolating, stopped being in the bedroom, slowly of her own accord, and not her dad and I pestering her, stopped with the online reality and started coming out into regular reality, and which gave us a lot of relief because we could see that was changing her as well. And then we wanted to see, so we stayed all summer. She stayed off of all carbs. We increased her good fats because that's what her brain was needing. When you went back to school?
Oh boy, when I went back to school, well, it was back to music major schedule, and it was back to the crappy foods. I had a little bit more time to sit down and enjoy some meals, at least towards the beginning of the semester, before everything hectic hit. And so I could, eat a little bit of a decent lunch at least 3 times a week, and dinner, maybe, 2-3 times a week as well. And right away, my stomach began to feel horrible. It was extremely bloated. It started going back to the way it was, the distended. And I noticed I was getting really, really tired. I was buying V8 energy drinks and whatever energy drinks. I thought they were low carb. Apparently they weren't. From the Dollar Tree, just to try and keep me awake and keep me going through the day. And it was so hard to be motivated to do my homework or practice of any sorts. And I was just dragging my feet. I probably got a bit moody at a couple times too, but it was.
How would you say your stress level and the depression?
The stress level definitely spiked a lot. The depression level was not quite as bad as it had been at the end of my sophomore year, but it was kind of, it did a little kick in, and it brought back some of my insecurities, and I started thinking just, I started going back to that phase a little bit as I entered, the school year, and just remembering some of the memories that I had from sophomore year.
During the summer that we had done the elimination trial this past summer, I think it afforded you enough self-confidence that you went to the girls' camp and were counselor, and you were actually able to befriend a couple of people, and that gave you enough confidence to go to the young adult camp, which you were never going to do before. And so all of that, and during the summer, that allowed us to kind of build back the relationship that we had. So when school started and she started eating the school food again, thankfully, instead of just isolating herself when she would feel bad or stuff, she would call me, and we'd talk. But I knew that something was wrong, and it just took us a little bit to put 2 and 2 together to come up with 4, that those processed foods and the school foods were killing her. So we had to figure out how to get her off the meal plan, because at the school that she's at, Um, if you board, you are required to be on the meal plan, whether you eat the food or not.
And I know I had been wanting to get off the meal plan before because I did notice that there was a little bit of a difference. Well, not a little bit. There was a big difference in my personality, and I just I didn't connect the carbs to the personality. I connected the carbs to I was feeling bloated, and with the low carb style, wasn't feeling bloated. So before the school started, a couple of weeks, I had sent an email to inquire how I could possibly get off the meal plan. Just thinking for my stomach, not thinking for my personality, and change and my depression. And it was just it was a long process. I mean, we had to come up with 3 days worth of meals to provide for myself, which I'm a simple person. I can eat I'm not going to eat 3 meals every single day. And I usually just have 1 meal a day, and I'm fine. I'm full. My weight is consistent. I'm consistent. I'm a happy person. So I can eat that meal 3 days, three out of the 5 days a week, and I am completely fine. But we had to come up with a full meal schedule, and then we had to schedule a doctor's appointment to get a doctor's note on top of that. And even our physician said that it was a very ridiculous process to go through, and I kind of agree that it had to be that long of a process to get off. Like, I wasn't eating food in the cafeteria after week 3, so I spent money to not eat food in the cafeteria for a whole 13 weeks.
Yeah, you would go to the store and buy your own and cook in the crock pot in the microwave.
Yep, and that was additional. And I mean, that's just how I lived, and I felt so much better when I wasn't eating the cafeteria food.
Yep. And what's one thing that's funny is Ashley would come home or be home on a weekend or a break, and if she had a carb heavy meal, her dad and I could, within a couple of hours, notice this personality change in her. Her mood would be weird, and she'd be grumpy, and I would be like, "What did you eat? Did you? I didn't eat anything. I just had macaroni and cheese," because she didn't think, and so she grabbed it. She's like, yeah. So as long as she stayed away from that, it was much better. But you could tell immediately. And but what spoke even more is people outside of our immediate family were noticing during the summer, because they would see her more during the summer because she wasn't at school, the change, how much happier she was. And they would make comments how healthy she looked. Just she was happier. She wasn't stuck in her electronics. She didn't hide when we went somewhere. She was like participating, which hadn't happened for a couple of years. And people were really noticing. So when we went finally in October, we were able to get into her physician. And after going over everything, our doctor said definitely she needs to be off of all processed foods. And she wrote the letter, and she still wasn't exempt for this past semester. So she paid for the food for the entire thing, and she never ate it. We would cook her burgers and things and send them to school. And so hopefully in the future, that'll be something that the school changes and let the kids be adults and figure out how to feed themselves. And if they want to eat in the cafeteria, pay for it. And if they don't, yeah. So now that you have pretty much been eating out of your own food and from home, how do you feel? How does your health feel? And I mean, you're still taking the Neoline, obviously, right, and all of that works together. Some of the other things that you've noticed, your cycle is regular?
My cycle is very regular. For the most part, I don't have really bad cramps.
And you used to have bad cramps.
I used to have really bad cramps. I know this past one I did, but that was also because I was finishing up school, so I did do a little cheating, I'm sorry to say. And so with the stress that built, my cycle was actually late as I went into pre-finals and then finals, and didn't have time to go grocery shopping. So it definitely was late, and it hadn't been late almost all semester. And it was a bit more of a doozy than my past ones that I've had since I've started going low carb. So that was one where I'm just kind of like, oh, back to the low carb style.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to add?
I don't think so. I personally am not going ever carb again. I've noticed that I'm just not meant for that lifestyle, and I just cannot digest that food. Not that anybody really can, but to each their own. I will always stay low carb, and not only has low carb given me back my personality, it made me a happier person, and helped me make new friends, but it's taught me how to cook. So I actually enjoy cooking. I'm currently looking at getting an apartment because I really want my own kitchen, so that I can actually cook my nice low carb food. So
well, and this proves, just you wanting to do this interview proves how good you felt, because just talking about the self-harm and the things that you had struggled with, that was always hush hush. That wasn't something that you ever, or the not liking yourself, that was something that I
never really shared it,
would have, or that you would have even been comfortable putting on my blog or anything. So but I know it wasn't easy, and I thank you for offering to do that, because it's huge to spread the awareness too, because other people struggle. And if they can find even a little bit of what you found, that'll be worth your sharing your testimony. So
I just want to help other people, and I know one of the main ways is by telling my story. So
thank you everyone for joining us. It was a little longer than what we normally go, but it was definitely important. And so if you know someone who struggles with depression or anxiety or stress, Neolife is great to help with that. But as we all know, you can't outrun a bad diet. And so sometimes we want to just supplement and keep eating what we think is healthy, because we're told whole grain pastas and these things are really healthy for us, right? You see on the bottom of the food pyramid all the grains, heart healthy grains. But if you have someone that's struggling mentally, or has those challenges, those foods could actually be killing them. And no amount of supplementation is going to outrun what is hurting their brain. It can help combat what's going in there, but it's never going to help heal it. It's just, you're going to heal a little and then it's going to get bad again. And you're going to heal a little and it's going to get bad again. Whereas if you can couple it and go keto or low carb, high fat, and you need the fat, it can't be low carb, low fat. That doesn't work. Those two things together are like magic. So if there's anything that I can ever do to be of help, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My blog is sherryslowcarbkitchen.com, or you can just find me at Sherry Reef on Facebook. And thank you for viewing, and you guys have a nice evening and a very Merry Christmas.